I'm Devin Alexander, and I make your favorite foods. I prefer spending 20 minutes in the kitchen over 3 hours in the gym any day. If you can relate, stick around. The gym or shopping? Well, I like the results of the gym, but I much prefer shopping. I'm about to show you a recipe that can help you lose weight just by cooking it yourself. Here's my version of a beef barbecue sandwich. You'll save 211 calories and 26 grams of fat in one sandwich. You really can't beat that, can you? Now, of course, we're going to use real beef. You can't have a beef barbecue sandwich without beef. And even though this is a healthy show, it is okay to eat beef as long as you use a lean cut. I use top brown steak. It's also sometimes called London broil. I just cut that into 3/4-inch cubes. And now I'm gonna work on tenderizing that a little bit. I'm gonna add some flour here, just a little bit, some garlic powder, and some onion powder. Now, I'd normally also add salt, but I'm gonna add some chicken broth later, so we don't wanna go overboard on the sodium. But that also will help tenderize the meat. I'm just gonna put the cubes in the bag. And then shake it up so they're coated. And then you're gonna go and put this in the refrigerator for a while. Okay, just get it all nice and coated like that. And again, the flour's gonna help break down the meat. Like, sort of if you've been in a Chinese restaurant, you'll notice that the meat is coated. That looks about right. Grab that other one that I have waiting for me. There we go. Now I'm just gonna turn on my pan. I'm gonna brown this on the outside and then let it simmer for a long time. Now, I always turn on the pan before I spray it because you want to make sure the pan gets nice and hot. You don't want the oil to get stuck in there. When you're using a spray, you know, sometimes it goos on there, but that's how you keep your pans better. And when you're cooking a leaner meat, or any meat really, you want to sear in the juices, so it has to be on a high heat. You should hear the sizzle when you finally do. And then if the meat starts getting too browned on the outside, you can just turn the heat down later because the juice is already locked in. Okay, let's see how we are here. Sounds good. We hear the sizzle. And then throw in the meat. That in there. Wash off my hands. I had an ex-boyfriend who mentioned that his mother made the best beef stew in the world. Well, of course, I had to see that as a challenge. But no, the truth is, I knew that his dad had high cholesterol. And I was like, well, you know, she could be doing that much leaner, I'm sure. And he's like, oh, no, not her beef is so tender. And I'm like, I can make really tender beef. So I made it for him, and then he was like, your beef stew is much better. The reason I bring that up is this is a great recipe to use with beef stew also. Letting this brown. And then so finally, I wound up meeting his mother, and he told her that my beef stew was better, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. At least for me. I mean, you know, she can't really get mad at him, but then I made it for her, and she's like, how do you get the beef so tender? And I was like, I just use a lean cut and cook it for a long time, which is what we're gonna do here. Starting to brown on one side, that flipped over. You want it browned on all sides. And again, if you're cooking this for beef stew or something like that, you probably wanna make the beef cubes a little chunkier. You can just do 1-inch cubes, 1.5-inch cubes. For all the specifics about this recipe, you can go to discoveryhealth.com. You'll find out all the amounts, and you'll have plenty of tips and tricks also on there. So we're getting pretty browned here. Looking just about done. I actually developed this recipe because I had a client when I was teaching cooking lessons for a lot of years who was a movie star from the South. And she was trying to lose weight for a movie, but she was dying for her beef barbecue sandwiches that she loved. And she came to me and she's like, there's no way you can do that, right? And I was like, no, it's simple. She was so excited. She was telling everyone in Hollywood. So I'm going to put the lid on, turn the heat down to low, and let this simmer for about an hour to an hour and a half until the meat is really tender. And then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show you how to make guilt-free French fries, because what's a beef barbecue sandwich without French fries? And then I'm cutting them into about 1/3 inch sticks. Now, I was the biggest fast food junkie as a kid. I loved French fries and chicken parmesan and all that stuff. But unfortunately, it made me gain way too much weight. And then fortunately, when I started cooking this way, I lost about 55 pounds. So I think that cooking is definitely a better way to go than spending hours and hours in the gym. I find it very soothing, actually. My love for fast food actually led me to write my first cookbook called Fast Food Fix, where I learned how to make these fries. You know, you can't write a book about fast food and not put crunchy French fries in there. But I was having a really difficult time with baked fries because you can't deep fry them, obviously, otherwise you're not going to save any fat or calories. Okay, I'm going to put these in just a little bit of boiling water. Now there's salt in here also. Oops. Throw them in there. And I'm gonna just let them boil for about 3 minutes. Now you may think that's odd. Why is she boiling baked fries? How are they gonna be fries? Well, in the process of trying to get them crispy, I realized that restaurants often double fry their fries. The first time they fry them, it releases a lot of moisture, and the second time they fry them, they actually get nice and crispy. So I tried double baking them. That didn't work. So I was like, how could I do this? And I realized to release that first bit of moisture just by boiling them for a couple minutes, but don't do it too long or they'll totally break. You'll get rid of the moisture, and then when you bake them, they will get crispy. So I have some here that are already boiled. I'll put them in a bowl. And make sure you let these cool for about 5 minutes before you touch them if you're doing it with your hands, because they're way too hot. Okay. Then I'm just gonna put a teaspoon of olive oil on there. Now, I always make sure I have a really strong flavored extra virgin olive oil. That way, the flavor comes through when you bite into the French fries and they taste much more oily than they are. I love that. Okay, and then put a little salt on here because, well, who has French fries without salt, right? Just don't overdo that either because you don't want too much sodium in your diet. And then I just toss them together with my hands. Went overboard. Okay. Wipe that off. We're gonna spray the sheet just to make sure they don't stick. And if you don't have a nonstick baking sheet, you can always use parchment paper on here, or they have those silicone baking mats. I'm sure you've seen those by now. Spray this. It'll work perfectly on those things too. Okay, just put them on here, spread them out. You wanna make sure they're not touching each other, or the moisture will stay inside of them, they'll never get crisp. Oh, and if you want soft fries, which I honestly prefer soft fries, I just skipped the boiling process. All right, they're ready to pop in my oven. And then I have some waiting for me. Oh, they look so good. I guess they're too hot to eat. Mmm, nice and crispy, just like I promised, and salty, which I love. When I come back, I'm gonna show you how to make contemporary coleslaw, because what's a barbecue without coleslaw? A woman recently emailed me and told me that she made my hand-cut fries using extra light olive oil instead of extra virgin. She wanted to know how many calories and fat she'd save. Don't do that. You don't save any calories and fat in that case. Extra virgin has a stronger flavor and no more calories than extra light does. Extra light doesn't refer to the calories in this case, it only refers to the flavor. It's been more processed and thus you don't taste the olive oil as much. So go with the extra virgin because that way your finished dish will have a stronger oily flavor and it'll taste more like the real fried version. Are you begging for barbecue yet? We've already started the beef for our barbecue sandwich, and I just finished my version of French fries. Now let me show you how I make my coleslaw. I'm finishing up the cabbage here. I'm just gonna put this in a big bowl. Go, get that. And then I'm gonna add some carrots to it. Now, you can buy, if you're trying to save time, the pre-prepared mix. It's usually a little more expensive than doing it yourself, but it definitely saves you time. So, time or money. Now, I'm gonna grab some ingredients from my refrigerator for my sauce. Traditional coleslaw has tons of mayonnaise, obviously. Now, this is one of those dishes that I use light mayonnaise instead of low-fat or fat-free. I try to use low-fat a lot, but in this one, because the flavors aren't that strong, I think that it's better to go with light, but just use a little less. So I'm going to whisk this together. Just grab a bowl here. A little bit of light mayonnaise. As I said, I just use 1/3 cup, and you can go to discoveryhealth.com for the specifics on all the other ingredients. And then I use some plain yogurt. Adds same great texture as mayonnaise without all the fat, and it supplements the light mayonnaise that I'm using. Get that in there. And then some celery seed, sugar, a little bit of pepper, actually just a tiny bit of that, don't need so much. Some vinegar, white vinegar I like to use, but you could use cider vinegar. Mix that together, and a little bit of salt. Now I'm gonna use a whisk for this. Whisk this all together. It's looking great. And then I'm simply gonna pour it over this mixture. I love the colors of coleslaw. Put that in there, mix this all up. And you wanna just keep this in your refrigerator for at least a couple hours. You know, coleslaw takes a while for the flavors to mingle. Looking so good. You can also use purple cabbage for this, which adds even more color especially if you're entertaining. As I said, when I was overweight, it was so tough to give up all this food, so I get so happy when I don't have to anymore. I can eat anything I want, pretty much. Cut and covered. I can't wait to get to my barbecue. It actually looks like it's getting done there. Oh, but you know, I need to make some onions for it. You don't have to do the onions, but it's always nice to have them nice and crunchy there. There, okay, set. Let me see. Oh yeah, that looks great. Okay, put that there, grab my pan. Yes, love it. Okay, I'm gonna spray this pan, burner's already hot. And then add some onions. I usually do about 1/2 cup. You can do a little more if you want. Whatever you like. Onions don't have any fat in them and very few calories, so you can't really go wrong. Saute those up. It's gonna take about 5 minutes for these. And in the meantime, I think I'm gonna go ahead and work on my beef a little more. Now, I strain this from the liquid. Don't you just love beef barbecue? You know, you could use pork for this too. It's almost like a pulled pork sandwich. But I've seen people make them with turkey legs, and I've never really understood that. Like, it's pork. How can you use turkey? That's strained out nicely. Draining. And the way you can tell if this is done, I'll show you in a second, the meat should just come apart with a fork. You don't even need to chop it up, really. Here we go, get the liquid out. You can leave a tiny bit of liquid, it won't make a big difference. Then we just come over here, add this to the bowl. And then you take your fork and you just mash it. Okay, mash this together. And then, of course, you need barbecue sauce. When I'm picking my barbecue sauce, I always make sure that I pick one that doesn't have a lot of carbohydrates. Some of them will have as many as 18 grams of sugar in them, which, then what's the point? You don't want all those sugars in your body. So some of the ones that only have 7 naturally are kind of the way to go, maybe 7 to 10. I mean, the ones that actually say low carb on them tend to have more chemicals and other ingredients that I don't really like so much. But, you know, an all-natural one that just doesn't happen to have a lot of sugar in it. That seems to be coming apart very nicely. Oh, and my onions are coming together too. Let's see, give the onions another stir. So good. Don't you just love the smell of onions? All you have to do is cook onions and garlic when someone's coming to your house, and they're gonna think you're a master chef. It smells so good. There we go. That in there, add some barbecue sauce. I usually add about 1/3 of a cup. You could add 1/2 cup, but not too much more. Or you can save some of this to add to the sandwich at the end, just to give it that color at the top. Now, I have some onions already cooked here. And then my buns. I use whole wheat buns. You want to use the hamburger size that are about 3.5 inches. If you use bigger ones, you're going to be making too big a sandwich, too much carb to protein. So this way you'll have about 4 ounces of protein and 100 to 120 calories in bread, and it'll have fiber in it since it's whole grain. I'm going to scoop some of this, about 1/4 of this meat, onto my bun. Another option is toasting the bun. If you're a person who really likes toasted buns, just do them dry. You can put them in your pan next to your onions, just use a bigger pan, and then put them face down just for a couple minutes, or you can do it under a broiler, of course. I love this. A little bit more. Gotta make a nice big juicy sandwich here. And then add some onions. When I come back, we are going to finish up this barbecue feast. Every chef has a list of cardinal rules that they come up with after spending hours honing their craft. For me, I have the added bonus of having worked with a lot of people who want to recreate their favorite recipes, and I've seen them make a lot of mistakes. So pay attention to these. They're really important in healthy cooking overall. You always want to start with a hot pan when you're cooking any kind of meats. You want that browned outside that tastes so good. So it should always be in a single layer. That way you can guarantee perfection. It'll be great on the outside and nice and tender on the inside. Next, salads. When you're making salads, whatever you do, dry your lettuce. You can use a salad spinner or just a plain old kitchen towel with no lint on it. Also, when you're making salads, seed the tomatoes and cucumbers. You'll be so happy you did. That moisture does not belong. Now, another thing, you always want to season your meat. So if you're gonna brown your meat, season it first, at least with salt and pepper. Make sure the seasoning is in every bite so you always get a flavor explosion. And the last one, egg substitute. Now, those egg substitutes are great. They're really easy. You pour them right out of a carton into your pan. Makes an amazing omelet. Save tons of fat and calories. But if you're breading items like fish or chicken, you don't want to use egg substitute. It's much runnier a consistency than egg whites are, so use egg whites. That way, your breading will be nice and crisp and fluffy, just like it was deep fried.
Tonight, conflict erupts when
Today we've created a barbecue feast and we never once had to dirty the grill. With my version of these dishes and the coleslaw that I'm about to get out, you save 513 calories and 61 grams of fat over the traditional versions. So let's get that coleslaw. Okay. I love the color of this. It just adds such nice color and flavor to everything. And crunch, too. Okay, throw a little bit of this on there. Have to get a good serving. It's a veggie, after all. Okay. Yep, I can definitely dig into that. I'm gonna try the fries first. They're always my favorite. So nice and crispy. Get some of this coleslaw. Great crunch to this meal. Remember, just because it tastes great doesn't mean it can't be good for you. See you next time.